Hello, beautiful soul. My name is Joanna. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, thank you so much for being here. However, I have shown up in front of your eyes. Thank the universe for that. And if you are here for the very first time, chances are there is something here for you that will benefit you in some way with whatever you are dealing with at this particular time of your life, or maybe even later at some other time. My intention as Joanna is to help you ultimately to realize your strengths and your fullest potential. And the only way that we are able to do that, to realize our fullest potential, is to understand how we are blocking ourselves from doing that now. And the type of blocks that I'm talking about are the self-imposed limitations that are the product of the mind, and how these limitations essentially keep us away from experiencing more of what we want. You can call these things shadows. You can call these things what's another word of shadow is actually a really good word to use. So if you're not familiar with shadows, shadow is an aspect of ego self that limits one potential, because shadow is essentially block from light. Light meaning everything that exists. So if you are here, if you are watching this, chances are you have been asking for guidance in your own unique way. And perhaps this guidance is going to come through this information that I'm channeling. So thank you so much for staying. I do hope you like what you hear. If you feel inclined to do so, click the like button at the end once you hear the message. And maybe share it with a friend or two who you feel would benefit from this kind of information. At the end of the day, I am not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you what is good or bad for you. You are the one in control of your life and therefore deciding what that is for you. But hopefully the information that will flow through will help you recognize more internally what you feel is right or wrong for you. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for coming back. Without you, there would be no need for me to do this. And I absolutely love what I do. When I tune into higher frequency, it makes me feel like I am at home. And it's not the type of 3D physical home that we are normally used to thinking of home as. It's the type of home that feels out of the ordinary, if you know what I mean. So thank you for helping me practice this awareness of being at home. And it is always coupled with a higher frequency. So let's see what today's transmission is going to bring for us. But before I move on with the messages, I want to share with you, for those of you who are new to me, to Joanna, and to this channel, part of me helping individuals transform themselves in order to live more expanded, happier, more evolved, if you were alive, physical lives. I create tools that are meant to help people transform from living in a limited way to living in a more unlimited way. So if you are seeking to become more of who you are, if you are seeking to embody more of your greatness, if you are looking to experience life from a much higher and greater perspective, I have developed tools for you to do just that. These are transformational tools that were channeled over a period of time. And all you have to do is just click the link down below or go to my website, Joanna the Healer, and click under free gifts, and you will automatically have access to these amazing free transformational gifts that I have created for you. One of them is a masterclass on how to connect with higher guidance and your own inner guidance, because every single one of you has incredibly knowledgeable, powerful inner guidance. We just don't always know how to reach for it or how to tap into that. So those tools are created for that purpose especially. There are channeled meditations on clearing your energy, channeled meditations on how to heal your inner child, channeled meditations on how to deal with your ego self, with your shadow self, which is usually the wounded ego part of who we are, part of our identity. So do yourself a favor, click on those below. It doesn't cost you a penny. It only costs you your own time, and start using these tools right away. I have heard amazing feedback from people who have used these tools, and the feedback is that there's a lot of meditations out there, and there's a lot of amazing meditations out there. When I channel information, it's not just words. There's a certain frequency behind these words, and this frequency bypasses the critical thinking, and it goes straight to your soul, if you will. So listening to these meditations and working with them will help you tremendously on many levels, and oftentimes it will work on an unconscious level with you, but you will feel it in your body. So I hope you find these helpful. If you would like to comment on how these tools are helping you, even just to recognize certain things about yourself that you were not aware of, I love seeing your comments. At the end of the day, it essentially validates for me that what I'm channeling is working. So that's what I have for you. And this week's energy, or whenever you hear it, there is no specific date on it, but whenever you hear this information, what you will likely experience in terms of energy is a bit of a quietness, or a lull, as I call it, or at least that's how I feel it. And when I tuned in today and kind of inquired, what are we going to talk about, I was shown a symbol that told me, it's all about inner work. And we all have lofty ideas of what we want to experience, what we want to build in our lives, what we want to manifest in our 3D reality. But at the end of the day, our 3D reality is the projection of what goes on in our inner reality. So in order to experience our lofty ideas, in order to manifest the abundance that we want, in order to manifest the relationship, the health, whatever it is that we want to experience, sometimes, and this is one of those times, it is important and necessary to do some inner work in order to recognize what is happening on the inside that has been preventing us from experiencing whatever it is that we are wanting to manifest. And almost always what is preventing us from doing so is our shadows, or are our shadows. And as I've mentioned before, shadow is basically blocked light, which means we are not able to function or live in our full light, which is where we come from, and instead we live in our shadows. And shadows are very, very limiting, and they more often than not, I would say almost always, come from the ego being hurt, from our wounded ego. everyone has wounds. There is not a person in the physical 3D reality that doesn't have some sort of wounds. It's part of, I believe, human condition. And these wounds on a much higher level have a purpose to them. One of the biggest purposes is to transcend it so that we can learn and grow. And every situation, however small or big, always has something for us to learn from. Now, this isn't always necessarily very easy to see from a human perspective, but since everything serves a purpose, and I mean everything serves a purpose, doesn't matter how small or big, in the context of the universe and consciousness itself, it stands to reason that all of the wounding and all of the experiences that we have had experienced that created our wounds, there is a reason and purpose to them. And again, in order to truly be able to look at it without being triggered or angered, we have to look at it from a much higher perspective. If we only look at it from a physical 3D, very limited human perspective, chances are it's going to be very difficult for us to see. And I am the queen of shadow work, if you will. I absolutely love working with the shadow self in order to help people realize that they are more than their shadows. And the moment we begin to recognize our shadows and the moment we begin to heal our shadows, we literally transform our own energy, where we transform shadow into a strength. So I'm going to show you a vision that was given to me in my mind that represents this energy that we are feeling right now. And it is called chop wood. So this is, I forget what the name of the card is. It is Collect, Bear, and Read cards. There's a link below if you would like to check them out. Okay. I pay attention to everything on the image because whatever I'm drawn to has a certain interpretation for me. So I will talk about the numbers in a moment, number 42. But I really want to talk about what this image represents. When it was shown to me, it was basically a sign for me to let me know that it's time for doing the mundane things. Rather than focusing on our lofty ideas, on our big plans, on our big commitments we are wanting to draw into our life and we're wanting to experience. Now is the time where we have to spend our focus and energy on doing the things that are often not very comfortable. Maybe not comfortable is not the right word, although it's not often very comfortable. But they're just mundane, things that we would rather just kind of put on the side. At the end of the day, this card is titled Chop Wood. I've never chopped wood, but I've seen people chop wood. It doesn't necessarily seem like something that is fun. It actually feels like it's just hard work, but it's work that is absolutely necessary. If you are needing to create fire, you need wood. In order to create fire with wood, you have to make wood into pieces that are going to help you create your fire. And fire meaning creation. So in order for you to create something meaningful in your life or something big or lofty, you have to chop wood. You have to do the thing that doesn't feel very good and isn't necessarily overly exciting, but is absolutely necessary in order to create whatever it is you're creating to. And this was shown right in my face, which told me I too have something to work on. I'm no different than you. I still present myself as a human being with a physical body with a whole bunch of shadows lurking in the background. And this is a time where I am seeing another layer of certain shadows coming up for me in order to help me realize how I am stopping myself or preventing myself from going to the next level of what I feel is meant for me to do. Now, when I say meant for me, nobody is telling me to do this. It's a calling. And in order for me to reach this next level, I have to look at my own reflection and recognize aspects of myself that are still wounded, still attached to a limited version of me, because those aspects are absolutely not helping me to go where I want to ultimately go. And my highest goal, if I can use that analogy, is to be the clearest channel I can possibly be. And the purpose of me being a clearest channel is to bring forth higher vibrational frequency information in order to help every single one of you to know yourself better, so that you come out of your own shadows and begin to live your life through your own will other than through your shadow self. So you are likely at this time of whenever you're watching this, feeling slightly disoriented. Perhaps you are feeling like you are being pushed back, like there is this invisible energy that's pushing you back and it's not allowing you to move forward. And it is not that you are not able to move forward, it is that for some reason this energy is making it more difficult for you to move forward. And what happens is, if you imagine some energy, being there trying to push you back and you trying to move forward, that creates a lot of resistance. In fact, it is what I have been experiencing and not even realizing, what is this resistance about? And this morning, I became aware of what that is. And this energy has been with me for probably 3 weeks. Now, we are in eclipse season. We just had the April 30th eclipse. There will be quite a few others to follow for the next 6 months or so. And eclipse season is really all about eclipsing what no longer serves us. And I often say, to let go of something that you are unaware of is a little bit difficult. Because if you are unaware of something, then you cannot effectively deal with it. So if you are feeling like you are at a standstill, if you are feeling like some invisible energy is pushing you back and you are wanting to charge forward and it feels like you can't, which was very much what I have been feeling. I described it as running through a very thick mud, which creates a lot of resistance. And as a result of that, I am feeling very much depleted of energy, because that's a lot of internal work. And I have been feeling that there is some conflict going on. But I was not aware of it until just this morning. So apparently this is the energy that we are presented with in order to go deeper inside and become more consciously aware of what is going on. What is our truth? What are some of the shadow aspects that are still in charge of running our lives? Because if you are here listening to this, then chances are your spirit, your soul, wants to be in charge. Now, in order for your soul and spirit to be in charge, you first have to trust it. And what I was seeing is our spirit wanting to come out of hiding and be in charge and lead you to whatever you are being led to. Your spirit knows. But we are pulling back, and instead we're pulling our spirit into a box, and we are not allowing that to happen. And the reason for that is quite simple. It's some level of fear. If you're an average human being, and chances are you are, you have some fear. Some fear is absolutely normal. In fact, a certain level of fear is necessary. It is necessary for survival. I often say if we had no fear whatsoever, if we didn't have survival fear, we would often do dumb shit that would make our life very short. And we don't want to do that. But the type of fear that I'm talking about, it's not the instinctual fear where we are trying to preserve our life. That is normal, that is necessary, and it's never something that should be gotten rid of. It's instinctual. It's absolutely there. It's the animalistic part of our brain. The type of fear that we're talking about is the fear that is attached to our shadow selves. The part of ourselves that still needs healing, that needs to heal, or that has not healed. So you might be feeling lost right about this time. You may have been feeling this way for a while, or you're going to be feeling this way in a little while, but chances are you are in this energy already. And the message for you is, if this is how you feel, rather than putting all your effort to your manifestations, have them in your mind and absolutely have them in your periphery. But perhaps spend some time doing some clearing on the inside. Just like chopping wood, clearing house. Let's talk about the numbers here that are represented, 4 and 2. So 4 and 2 comes to 6. 6 is the number of balance to me. It is also the yin and yang, the feminine and masculine, which is in balance. Or it's called lovers in the traditional tarot deck. But I want to talk about more in terms of balance. In other words, the work that we are inclined or we are encouraged to do is for the purpose of bringing back more balance. More balance of the yin and yang. More balance of the creativity and the mental. Generally speaking, most people are very mental, or they live in their yang energy. And oftentimes the yin energy, which is the creative energy, is quite suppressed. And the idea here is that we have both for a reason. And I'm not talking about physically feminine or masculine. I'm talking about energies which are inherent to every single human being, regardless of whether you consider yourself a biologically man or a woman, female or male. Okay. What I'm hearing also is balance is where peace is. Where things are out of balance, we generally experience far less peace. So your job right now is to look on the inside and ask yourself, what is out of balance? What part of me is keeping me stuck? What version of me, what part of me is resisting? Better yet, if you feel like you are in resistance, or if you're feeling lost, what part of me is feeling lost? Because let me tell you, your soul is not lost. Your soul is not lost. What is lost is the human ego part of you that you identify with. So good question to ask yourself, what part of me feels lost? Which part of me feels lost? Which part of me feels insecure? Because your soul is not insecure. Your soul is very powerful. And if you have a part of you that feels lost, why does it feel lost? Why does it feel lost? Why is there a part of you that feels lost? What does it need in order to find itself? So if you're feeling lost right about now, and chances are you are, you can freak out, which is what some people do, and go to your head and try to figure things out from a logical perspective, which may lead you somewhere, but not very far. Or you can instead take a trip to the inside and start exploring the internal environment that's going on within you. They're showing to me, or they're saying to me, your soul wants you to succeed. Now, your soul's idea of success may be very different than your human version of success. So let's ask, according to the soul, what does it mean to succeed? And what I heard was, your soul's idea of success is to be free. Now, if you think about it, most of us, not everyone, most of us who are listening to this type of information are free. We are not in jail, at least not most people listening to this. You are not confined somewhere where you are behind locked doors and you have no freedom. We are essentially, if you're watching this, free human beings. Yet on the inside, many of us do not feel free. So if we have freedom, yet we don't feel free, why is that? What is the part of us on the inside that doesn't feel free? And if you don't feel free, you essentially will feel limited. So if you feel limited, what are you limited by? What aspect of you is limiting you? Because you also have a soul aspect to you that is not limiting you. Your soul is abound. It wants you to live life to your fullest potential. Your shadow self, on the other hand, shadow selves, we have many shadows. Those are the aspects that limit you. You may have an aspect of you, a shadow aspect of you, that does not want you to be successful, as an example. Now, why wouldn't someone want to be successful? Why wouldn't, if you're this person and you have a fear, perhaps unbeknownst to you, of being successful, let's take this, look at it in a logical way. Why would anybody be afraid of success? Well, it all depends what success means to you. Perhaps you were taught that if you are successful, you have to live up to a certain type of identity or level of identity that you are just not prepared to do. Perhaps your idea of success means that if you are successful, then all of a sudden now you have to be responsible for everybody. Perhaps if you are successful, you are deemed as a bad person. We have so many ideas of what different things mean to us. So success to me, personally, is the ability to be free, to feel free, and to express myself as free as I want, without my own limitations telling me that if I do this, I'm going to be rejected. If I say this, I'm going to be abandoned. If I do this, I'm going to be thought of as not good enough. Whatever it is, every single one of us has these things. But let's get back to our little message. Spending time in restoring our balance is the key or the theme. So 4 and 2 represent 6. To me, that stands for balance, balancing the yin and yang. Some of you may have suppressed your yang energy. Some of you may be suppressing your yin energy. The thing about suppression is this. When we suppress an aspect of ourselves, we tend to overcompensate somewhere else. And the overcompensation often leaves us empty-handed, is what I'm being told. Because when we overcompensate for anything, it generally stems from a sense of inner lack. Now let's talk about this lack idea. I've talked about this before, but I feel it's worth mentioning. As far as the whole universe is concerned, as far as consciousness itself, source, God, whatever you believe that is concerned, you as a being of light, as a part of consciousness that is, you lack nothing. It's impossible. It's impossible. You come from wholeness, which means you are part of it. You lack nothing. What you may be lacking, though, is the awareness that you lack nothing. And the lack of awareness that you lack nothing is through the shadow self that tells you that you are lacking something, that you are not good enough, that you are somehow not special enough. Everyone is special in their own unique way. That you are not worthy, that you are somehow limited more so than other people. Whatever stories we tell ourselves, and we have so many stories. So many stories. And I'm talking about the stories that are limiting, not the profound stories that allow you to be all that you can be. We're talking about limitations here. So you might be someone who has suppressed his or her feminine power, which is all about creativity. And you pride yourself being very logical. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being very logical, but you have logic and you have creativity, and you need both. So if you favor one over the other, a part of you will suffer. A part of you will suffer. Are you one of those people who constantly lives in their head? I used to be that person. I still am to some degree. It takes tremendous effort for me not to get back to this old norm. And if you are this person, chances are you suppress how you feel. You suppress your emotions. And how you feel your emotions, that's all energy. It's nothing more, nothing less than energy. The thing about suppressing emotions is this. When you suppress an emotion, it's like trying to push water down. Now, the water doesn't just stop flowing. It just needs to find other ways. So if you are emotionally not very expressive, you'll generally find indications in your life of suffering in some areas. You might actually be suffering from headaches, is what I'm getting. If you are someone who experiences a lot of headaches, migraines, for example, This could be the result of you suppressing your emotions, trying to push them down, too much pressure. Of course, I'm not a doctor. There's many reasons why people have headaches, many reasons why people have migraines. I am not saying that that is the whole reason, but it is what I am being asked to say as one of the reasons why you might be getting headaches, too much pressure. On the other hand, you might be someone who is suppressing the masculine, and you are too passive. You are not comfortable with taking charge of your life and yourself. And you tend to lean towards others for living your life. Perhaps you're someone who makes others responsible for how you live. It's not a bad thing, but it's not very freeing, because it means that your entire life is based on what the outside tells you in terms of how to live your life, which means you are not creating your life, the outside is. And since it is your life, wouldn't it be nice if you were the one in charge of it, right? And I hear phrases like, and everybody has said this in certain times. I know I have many times. Oh, they're making me do this. She's making me do this. I feel this because of this person. That's just putting the onus on somebody else. And I'm not saying that the outside doesn't affect us, but ultimately, we are in charge of our own mind, or at least that's the idea. We are in charge of what we do with our feelings. We are also in charge of what we feel and how we feel. Not often easy to grasp that, but a feeling comes from you. Now, if someone triggers a certain feeling within you, then that means there is a trigger inside. The person is triggering something that's inside you. If there is no trigger, there's nothing to be triggered. So if you're someone who gets easily triggered by other people, it's not that they're making you feel a certain way, it's that they are triggering something that is already there. And if this trigger is making you feel uncomfortable, if it's making you feel less than, then it's worthwhile looking at what is that trigger all about. Every trigger has a story attached to it. And every story is basically compilation of all the experiences that we've had. So if you are easily triggered by other people, then that means oftentimes you live in your past, because triggers come from the past. They're not from the future. Okay? One of the things that is being talked about here is the focus on learning how to self-love. For the longest time, this was a concept for me that was very difficult to grasp. Very, very difficult to grasp. What does it mean to love yourself? And there's many ways of logically explain that, but at the end of the day, it's really something that you have to feel. And one of the ways that I can describe it is this. If you've ever had a best friend, or if you have a best friend, a really, truly good friend that means the world to you, that you would do pretty much anything for, that you have great respect and love for them. To love yourself is to be like you are to your best friend. It's that kind of a relationship that I'm talking about. And when we learn, because it's a learned thing, when we learn how to love ourselves, we begin to shine from within. And what happens when we begin to shine from within? Everything begins to be seen in a different light. For one, it changes our vibration. It changes our frequency. You often become a magnet to other people because light draws towards itself. Think of the idea of a lighthouse in the dark. What happens when you see a lighthouse in the dark? Your eyes automatically go to the light, not away from it, to it. Okay? So when you shine, when you start to shine, when you start to love yourself, you become a magnet to other people. As a matter of fact, notice that the more you begin to love yourself, the more you radiate this love to the outside of you. And when that happens, it's like I'm seeing bees being drawn to honey. People will naturally get drawn to you because they want to experience on an energetic level what you've got. It may not be conscious. They may be drawn to you. They may not even know why they're drawn to you. But chances are they're drawn to you because you emit a certain light. Now, what I'm being asked to say is this. Sometimes when we emit this light, we can draw people to ourselves that we may not want to be around with. People that are toxic, people that are deceitful, people that are lower vibration, because they will want to feed off of you. So it's very important that when you learn to love yourself, or any time for that matter, is you also need to learn how to have boundaries. Just because you have a lot of love to give does not mean you automatically have to give it to everyone who comes your way. You get to decide who you give this energy to. And some people and some situations are energy suckers, and it is important for us to acknowledge that. Doesn't mean you can't be around them, doesn't mean you can't have relationships, but you have to make sure that you protect yourself. I don't even know if protecting is the right word, but you have boundaries. Very important. So for many of you, part of the inner working, inner looking at the inner world, your inner world, is self-respect and boundaries. Perhaps you are someone who is not good at boundaries. Perhaps you are a yes person, like I have been most of my life, a yes person. And for me, the reason why I was a yes person is because I didn't know how to deal with conflict. I don't like how to deal with conflict. Most people don't. Or I don't like dealing with conflict. However, I can deal with conflict now. And if I said no, if I didn't say yes, there was a fear of being rejected. So I was a yes person. And rejection was in full force, driving my path. And there is a reminiscence of that's coming up for me right now. It's like, oh, okay, here we go again. Another layer. And we have layers upon layers upon layers. Now, the bulk of this shadow self has been addressed in the past. I've been working on this for over 20 years. But there's always a reminiscence of it that comes up. It's like a little bubble that comes up to the top. But now I'm seeing it. And I'm realizing, okay, here's an old tendency. And I have been doing some things that have been driven by this need to be a yes person. And it is actually not helping me to do what I need to do to be my best. That is not to say that I can't say yes to anybody. In fact, I do it all the time. But if we do it at our own detriment, that's something very different. So now I'm faced with that. Now it's in my face, and I have to decide what to do with it. Are you a yes person? Are you someone who fears rejection, and as a result of that, you tend to be a yes person? And it's not easy switching from a yes person to no thank you. It takes practice. It takes courage, because by doing something opposite to what you've always done, it takes courage. It disturbs the status quo. It brings forth your fears of perhaps being rejected. Okay? But if we function from a space of rejection, if rejection is the force, if you will, that drives our experiences, then what we are ultimately doing is we are creating based on lack. And if you're listening to this type of information, you know how this goes. If you're creating from a space of lack, you will inevitably be reminded of more lack. Like attracts like. Okay. The other card I wanted to show you is this exploration, shown to me in reverse. So in the upright, it shows exploring the world outside of you. In the protection position, or in the reverse, this is speaking to me about going within. So time to focus on the inside more so than the outside. The compass here, you have a compass on the inside. It is a barometer, if you will, that guides you and leads you in certain directions. And if your barometer or your compass is rooted in lack, is rooted in fear, then many of your important decisions will be made from a fearful place. And that is not what your soul wants for you. It's not what our soul wants for any of us. Because when you are in fear, you are limited and you are not free. Now, I'm not talking about your basic fear for survival. That's important, that's there. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of being independent. Some of you may have a fear around being independent. Why would there be? What's fearful about being independent? Perhaps fear of independent is tied to fear of being alone. If you're afraid of being independent, perhaps you're fearing that if you're independent, you're going to be left alone. So in reality, you have a fear of being left alone, and that usually boils down to fear of abandonment. So some of you have inner shadows, inner wounds around fear of abandonment. And that is very firmly often rooted in your second chakra, which is the creative part of you. In fact, if you have fear of abandonment, which has been mine for as far as I remember, your creativity will be thwarted. Your level of creation will be limited, because that fear will be it will be holding you back. And you will often have a tendency to be a yes person. So I'm noticing saying certain things quite often, being a yes person. Maybe you're one of those. Fear of commitments. If you have a fear of commitment on any level, relationship, committing to a project, or just committing yourself, ask yourself why. Why do I have a fear of commitment? And yet, better yet, what is the fear of commitment about? Why am I afraid of commitment? Perhaps for some of you, the fear of commitment stems from you being afraid of being taken advantage of. I believe most people have been taken advantage of on some level or another. Most of us know what that's like. I assume most people don't like it. Nobody likes to be taken advantage of. But some people take it more personally than others. So are you someone who's afraid of commitment because you're afraid that you're going to be taken advantage of? And if that's the case, then that means the original fear, the original wound of you having been taken advantage of is still there in your past, which means your past is still dictating to you what you do in the moment and also what you will do in the future. And that is very limiting. And your soul wants more for you. So this is the general message. This is the general energy. This is what I was guided to say. Now let's give you some individual attention and see what the universe wants you to know with a little bit more specificity. So I'm going to use different decks. If you would like to see the decks that I'm working with, there's a link. There are links down below. And I'm going to now focus on pile number 1. By the way, the moment I'm tuning into pile number 1, I'm getting a headache. And it's the type of a headache that's kind of on both sides. I'm not getting it very strongly, but it's an indication that you are dealing with a headache. So it's either a proverbial headache, you have a headache on your hands, or you actually physically have a headache. What I hear is too much pressure. You might be dealing with something in your life that is, you are being pressured to do something. You're feeling pressure. For some of you, it may be to do with work. Some of you, it is the pressure you put on yourself. What is this pressure that you might be putting on yourself? A pressure to drive forward, to do something, to create something. And you're putting this pressure on yourself to do something, but there is something you need to deal with first. Perhaps it's facing one of your shadows or some of your shadows. So let's see what message wants to pop in for pile number 1. Time for a nap in reverse. Okay. Again, notice the numbers, 42. Okay. So what this is saying to me is that you might be experiencing some sleepless nights. What is keeping you awake? What thoughts are running amok in your mind that are keeping you awake and that are not allowing you to sleep? What is that for you? And I just keep hearing the word pressure. What pressure are you under? What or who is creating this pressure? Because I feel like I am pressured and I'm having a very hard time getting out of it. I actually feel it very much on my chest. Perhaps you are being pressured to do something you don't want. Perhaps it's the type of pressure that you're putting on yourself, but there's a part of you that is afraid that you don't have what it takes. Perhaps your family is pressuring you to do something, your environment is pressuring you to do something, or it's just everyday pressures of life. There's nothing right or wrong with it, it just is what it is. Whatever the pressure is that you are feeling, the question comes to you is this: what can you do to either lighten the pressure or help it resolve itself? What can you do? Because they're saying to me, you have choices and you have options. You may not like the choices or the options, but there are choices and options. Perhaps one of the things that you can do, one of the choice or option for you, is to stand up for yourself, create a boundary, and get out of your own limited thinking. We all have it. It's not a diss at anybody. We all have it. Every single person has it. And there's no point in denying it either. Okay? Because if you deny it, then you can't effectively deal with it. You can't do anything about it. Who's putting pressure on you? Pile number one. Who's putting pressure on you and why? Do you feel like pressure is being put to you at work? Like I said, life puts pressure on us. It happens all the time. But this feels like a prolonged type of pressure, or it's a type of pressure that makes you feel completely out of alignment. So if you are one of those people who is feeling this pressure, what is this pressure triggering in you? What is this pressure triggering in you? Is it triggering the story that says, I'm not good enough? Or I can't be better? Or I can't see myself being anywhere different, so I have to be stuck with where I am? Whatever you are, wherever you are, pile number one, whatever pressure you might be feeling, they're saying to me very strongly, you have other options. They may not be readily available. You might look for them. They may not be in your visibility right away, but there are other options and other choices for you. Your job is to be willing to entertain other choices and other options. To be open, in other words, to other choices and other options. I'm going to pull another card for you. This is John Holland's deck, and I want to see, what is this about for you, pile number one? Give me a little bit more information. So I'm seeing money. You are likely feeling pressure around finances, around money. And for some of you, it's pressure around payout, being paid out or paying somebody out. Money moving out, money leaving, money being paid out. This is money coming from you, away from you. There's pressure around. Perhaps you feel like you don't have enough, and that's putting a lot of pressure on you financially. Okay. Here's what I heard. You don't have to do what you are being told. Now, disclaimer. If you owe the government money, for example, I'm not saying you don't have to do what you're being told. Clearly, you have to pay it out. But maybe there is a way that it can be done that can relieve some of the pressure that you are feeling. If you owe someone money, for example, whoever it may be, perhaps having a conversation or getting a consolidation loan, or coming up with some sort of a structure that will relieve some of the pressure on you and will allow you to pay this out in chunks that are much smaller and much more doable for you. So this is obviously a message for someone. It is a tax season. So if you are listening to this somewhere around May or June of 2022, or even later, you might be owing someone money. Again, the message is you have other choices and you have other options, but you have to be willing to seeing it. You must be willing to seeing it. You must be, in other words, you must be open to it. Okay. No card wants to come out, but I feel this is what I'm getting for pile number one. Actually, it's something that came out. What I also want to say that if you're pile number one, pardon me, there are choices and decisions that are needing to be made by you. You are needing to make some choices and decisions. There's options that are being presented to you, and this could be financial, this could be relationship type things, this could be where you live, and that may be creating pressure in your life. Okay. Look at this. How are you holding yourself back? This is the devil. This is the attachments. this is a really good time for you to look on the inside and see what's happening, what's going on, what's being triggered. How are you holding yourself back from being the best that you can be? Okay. Are you the master of your own life, or is someone else or some aspect of you that's limited as your master? So that's pile number one. Very interesting. All right. Let's look at pile number two. There is something that you are not wanting to face. You are being shown to me as hiding behind a big column, and you're hoping not to be seen. If this is you, if this speaks to you, what are you hiding from? Now, for some of you, you are trying not to be seen, and I see some sort of an external conflict. You are trying to hide yourself from a conflict. But here's what I hear. Whatever this conflict is in your life, it doesn't belong to you. It has nothing to do with you. It's somebody else's conflict. I see people fighting, and you're trying to hide, but it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. I can just see you move past it. So I don't know how this rings true with you, but if this is the case for you, what are you hiding from? Who are you hiding from? What conflict are you hiding from? So one message is there's people who are conflicted and you're hiding from them. That doesn't belong to you. Another message is you are hiding from a certain conflict. If it's an external conflict, I could see how you can hide away from it. If it's an internal conflict, it's very hard to hide away from. But I see it as an external conflict. What are you hiding from? Who are you hiding from, and why? This conflict needs to be resolved. Once you resolve this conflict, you will be in the clear and you will be able to close the door on karma. So you are likely going to be facing some sort of a conflict, a situation you don't want to deal with, a situation you want to hide away from. And perhaps the reason why you are hiding from it is because, well, it's your nature. You don't like dealing with conflict. Many people don't. But this conflict represents some inner conflict inside of you. And your inner conflict will always take away from you having peace. Because when we are at conflict, we are essentially at war. There is generally no peace where there is war. Okay? So two messages here. Are you experiencing conflict and you are not wanting to face it, or you are experiencing inner conflict and you're trying to hide from it? Whichever it is, as long as you hide from it, it will continually be put in your face. So there is something that you need to face. Pile number two. And whatever that is, it requires your attention. It also requires you to be flexible. Number 1 and number 9, which comes to a 10. 10 are number of completions. Flexibility is required at this time. Give and take. Give and take. When we are flexible, we are better able to handle life. When we are rigid, we create a lot of resistance. The more resistance that we experience, the more likelihood is that what we experience is uncomfortable and even painful. Okay? So one of the ways to reduce discomfort and pain is to be more flexible. 1 speaks to new beginnings, 9 speaks to letting go. In order for you to have a brand new beginning, you have to learn to let go of something. And what I hear is you attach yourself to other people too much. Perhaps you're someone who takes on other people's feelings. I know what that's like. I'm an expert at it. Perhaps you are someone who takes care of other people's conflict. Nothing wrong with that if that's your job. But if it's not your job and you make it your priority, then you are always dealing with conflicts in life that have nothing to do with you. And if you like that sort of thing, great, but chances are they take away from you and from your life. They take away from your energy. And perhaps if this is you, maybe you need to let other people take care of their own conflicts. Unless it's your job, of course. Like, I am a therapist and I help people deal with their conflict. I don't take care of their conflict. I help people deal with their conflicts. Because I can't take away anything that's inside of you. Okay? So there's a learning here. There's a learning here. You also have the opportunity to close doors on karma. What does that mean? It means that going forward, once you deal with whatever this is, you are less likely to repeat the same pattern. No more putting other people first in front of you. Now, there's nothing wrong with putting people first, as long as it's not a habit you make out of your own insecurities. In other words, if you put other people first because you think less of yourself, or you minimize yourself, or you put yourself last, that always speaks to some sort of distortion that's happening on the inside. If this is you, and we all have them, you have the opportunity to shed this distortion, to shed this skin, to let go of this illusion that you are someone not as valuable as somebody else. You are as valuable as the next person. Now, I know that's not the mind, that's not what the logical mind will say, it's not what the 3D ego mind will say. But from a higher perspective, you're just as valuable as the person next door. Now, we humans assign value to people based on various different things. Monetary, how somebody looks, how somebody dresses, that's all 3D stuff. It's all just temporary, it's all just make-believe. How do you assess your own value? Who do you make responsible to assess your value? Do other people tell you what your value is? What if they're wrong? What if they're completely wrong? What if they're nuts? Would you still believe them? What is your own assessment of your own value? What is your own assessment of self-worth? Perhaps that's something that you need to look into during this time, because whatever that is for you, it will either help you create more of an amazing, wonderful, abundant world for you, or it will keep you from doing so. You will be in a limited space. I apologize, my neighbor decided to turn on a very loud music, so if you hear that, my apologies. Let's pick another card for pile number 2, and let's see if there's a little bit more information that we could be given. Stunning, 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 stunning. Trust yourself. Trust the universe to support you. Trust the source to have your back. This is the Fool. Brand new energy. Brand new energy. And this is what I hear. You control the situation this time. And I'm not talking about being controlling. I'm talking about being in control of your own life. You control the situation this time. Decide you matter. Decide you're worth. Decide that you have what it takes to make shit happen. And then make the necessary steps towards making that happen. You have what it takes. Be open to seeing yourself differently. Why? In the past, you've had challenges seeing yourself for some reason. And generally, the reason why we have challenges looking at ourselves is because we have a skewed vision of who we think we are. Who we think we are. Who you think you are is purely your imagination. You can change that thought at any moment. And then now it's just a matter of believing it. See, the problem with these thoughts is that what you think is what you believe. If you believe in your thoughts of being less than, then that's a problem. That's a problem. Because what you believe is what you experience. What you believe is how you show up in the world. Not only that, what you believe becomes your vibration, and then the universe has no other option but to match you with like vibration. So you are stepping out of, some of you are stepping out of controlling situations. Others of you are stepping into a new paradigm where you are going to feel a lot more in control of your own self, and as a result, much more in control of your own life. But don't forget, be flexible. Okay? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now let's talk about pile number 3. Transformation abound. You are in the process of healing your heart in a very transformative way. You are coming out of a lot of pain and freeing yourself from this pain. So there is some considerable shadow work going on. So you've been doing some self work, some self-healing work. I commend you for that because it is not easy. The image of death is in my mind, and death is essentially transformation. It's shifting your vibration from lower to higher vibration, to higher frequency. And that's the equivalent of the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. And my understanding is that when the butterfly comes out of a chrysalis and it first spreads its wings, apparently the process is extraordinarily painful. So you might be going through some rough time right now, some rough waters. A lot of this may have to do with relationships. And you're not in a clear yet. I can sense a lot of heavy energy. But I almost want to promise you that whatever you're going through, on the other side of this experience is a healed heart. You are healing your heart in the process. And healing the heart, I believe, is one of the most important things that we can do. When we have a broken heart or a wounded heart, we're not nearly as open to manifesting anything that's of higher vibration. We are not only that, we are not as open to receiving whatever it is that we want to manifest. If you're pile 3, chances are you are dealing with some challenges around relationships, around romance, love type of energy, love from one human to another. And though I'm getting at most romantic relationship, it doesn't have to be, could be other relationships, but this is mostly, I feel, around romantic relationships. You may be going through a breakup. You may have had a breakup a while ago, but now you're coming to this realization that it's over and done with. Now you're in completion. You may have ended a relationship, but now you are in a completion process where you are realizing that's the end. There's no going back. And that's the end of the road for you in whatever this situation is. And I'm seeing at the end of that, at the end of this road is a healed heart. I can see this bright heart just kind of standing there waiting for you to claim it. So you're not there yet. You're not out of the woods yet, but it is there. I can see it very, very clearly. Make time for yourself. It's important that you give yourself a lot of TLC. It's important that you recognize your own truth in this situation. It's important that you see the situation for what it is and for what it was, not for what you wanted it to be, which is often an illusion. And if this is you, chances are that you are realizing that you were right about this situation all along, but you didn't, it's almost like you didn't want to hear it. You didn't want to see it. So you effectively denied it. And the reason why you did that is because you didn't want to deal with the consequences of seeing the truth. And the consequence of seeing the truth would be, well, what it is right now. So you inevitably were delaying the inevitable. Okay? So this is going to speak to some of you. If this is a partner type situation, either romantic or organic in some other capacity, this partner was not right for you all along, but you didn't want to see it. You didn't want to see it. If that's the case, if you are recognizing this right now, ask yourself, what part of you didn't want to see it? Perhaps the part of you that didn't want to see it, that it was not the right partner for you, was the part of you that's afraid of being abandoned. So rather than facing the fear of being abandoned, you denied what was right in front of you all along. Okay? We all do this once in a while when we are driven by our wounded ego self. There's nothing wrong with that, but you are in a position to be able to see it very clearly right now. And kudos to you, I want to say. I actually want to get very emotional because you have gone through a lot to be where you are right now. And if this is you, if this connects with you, there's no going back. There is no going back, and you are on your way to be free. So whoever this relationship was with, romantic or otherwise, it felt like your hands were tied. It felt like you were not able to be yourself. It felt like you were almost not responsible for yourself, like you were responsible for somebody else. You were made to be responsible for somebody else. Now, if this is a job, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking relationship here, okay? So if you are the one who's left, kudos for you, to you for leaving. If the situation is where something or someone has left you, I want to say congratulations, because it was not right for you to begin with. And better now than dragging this situation along and keep on denying what you already know is true or was true. You might be way overthinking things right now. Way overthinking, almost paralyzed by your thoughts. What you need right now is some sort of a retreat. And if you can actually go on a retreat, that would be fantastic, but I don't necessarily mean that's the only way. Retreat from yourself. Do something. Make yourself busy with something that brings you joy, just to get your mind away from what's going on right now, because you're in analysis paralysis. Too much thinking, overthinking right now. You're overthinking. Okay? You're overthinking. Once things die down or calm down, you'll be able to look back and see it much more clearly. Right now, for some of you, you may not be able to see the tree for the forest, or the forest for the trees, whichever way it goes. So this overthinking, this analysis paralysis may be giving you the headache that I was feeling at the very beginning. If that's the case, take a bath, go out, get something beautiful to eat, create some new experience, watch some funny show, or maybe a show that's going to make you cry to get things out of you. Also, when you're in analysis paralysis, you're not in a position to make good judgments. Okay? I feel like you need a break. You need a break from whatever this is. You need to give yourself some break. Whenever you're watching this, I'm going to say in 2 weeks, you're going to feel better about this. But for the next couple of weeks, it's going to feel like you're in shadows right now. Okay? Like you're behind shadows. Like your shadows are running your life, which is the hurt ego. Okay? Let's see what else we have for pile number 3. You're resisting a little bit. You're resisting a little bit. There's a fear coming up for you. And the fear is, what do I do now? What do I do now? Here's the question for you. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Don't ask someone or something what to do. Instead, decide what you're going to do. Decide what you want to do. And then ask the question, how do I make it happen? So rather than asking, what do I do now? Ask, what do I want to do? Now, because of where you're at right now in your analysis paralysis, you may not be in a position to answer that. You may not be able to see it clearly. So you may not be able to ask this question and actually get a real true answer for yourself for a couple of weeks or so. Give yourself the time, okay? And they're saying, make the impossible possible. So if this is a relationship for you, and you've just left a relationship, or a relationship has released you, and you said to yourself, I will never be in a relationship again. Never, never, never. The one thing I've learned is never say never. Oh, I've learned that quite a few times. Quite loudly, I must say. And if you believe from your current perspective right now that a true relationship is not possible, the universe is saying, make the impossible possible. How? Decide that it's possible. Literally decide it's possible. And then ask yourself, how do I make myself available to that kind of a relationship? Maybe perhaps, quite likely, you were not available. You were not making yourself available for that type of a relationship. Again, I'm seeing it romantic, but it could be another type of a relationship. So it could be different types of relationships. maybe you are not available for a mutually beneficial relationship, and that if that's the case, then chances are quite high that you were living from your shadows. So whatever the situation is to you right now, whatever you are dealing with, what version of you wanted you to experience that experience that you just left? Or let me rephrase. What aspect of you drew that experience to you? Because we draw our external world based on what is our internal world. Okay? So if you had an experience with someone where you've always put yourself last, ask yourself the question, what part of me with what belief system drew this experience to me or to itself? And chances are you'll come up with something like this. It's the part of you that doesn't feel good about itself or yourself, him or self or himself or herself. It's the part of you that feels small. It's the part of you that is afraid that if you don't do certain things, you won't belong. Perhaps it's a part of you that is afraid of being alone. A part of you that's afraid of rejection. A part of you that's afraid of abandonment. Okay? Remember, the energy right now is all about looking within, so that we resolve our inner conflicts, so that we clear them, so then we can move on and do whatever it is that we're wanting to do. And we are not held back by all those inner limitations. And of course, at any point, if you feel like you need help with someone helping you through your shadows, I'm the queen of shadow work. Like I said, it's absolutely my passion. I absolutely love it. When I was learning hypnotherapy 20 years ago or so, that was one of my favorite tools to use, inner child work coupled with shadow self or ego states therapy, as it's called. And I've created a combination of different tools and techniques that I use with clients, and it's incredibly powerfully effective because we're tapping right into the unconscious. So look what I got. Giving and receiving in reverse. You, my dear, have a challenge with giving and receiving. So you may be holding yourself back from giving of yourself, or you may be holding yourself back from receiving. There's always a reason. If you hold yourself back from giving, the question is, what part of you is holding back and why? If you're holding yourself back from truly receiving, what part of you is holding you back and why? What is its story? Okay? Whatever it is, however you are holding yourself back, it is not allowing you to be in balance. It will create inner out of balance. And when we feel out of balance, we often resort to overcompensating. So you may be someone who overcompensates by overgiving. When we overcompensate by overgiving, it is almost always tied to a shadow aspect that believes that we are not enough and its value. And by overgiving, we somehow show value. So if I overgive, people will stay, people will need me, people won't leave me, I won't be abandoned, all those sorts of things. So if you are overgiving, then there is a shadow aspect that is in control of you, which means you are creating your life in terms of relationships from an unhealed space. And that does not speak to freedom. And your soul wants a lot more for you than that. Even though this is number 6 and it speaks to balance, I am being shown the number 5. You are going through some changes. Some of you actually may be experiencing existential crisis. And those are not easy, but existential crises are almost always a, what's the word I want to use, please? A sign of some great internal shift going on. Because you are beginning to literally question who you are, what is your purpose, what is your life about, what's the purpose of being alive. And that often leads to incredible growth. But it's not easy. Again, if you would like help with that, I and my team would be absolutely honored. And of course, all of the tools that I've created for you that are available to you, absolutely free, are all designed to help you with all of this here. So I would invite you to click on the link if you haven't already and start using these tools and just see what you get. That's what I have for you. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I hope that I was able to give you something meaningful here. I would love for you to click like, subscribe if you feel so, click the notification little bell, and forward it to a friend or two who you feel might benefit from this. Thank you again so much. I look forward to seeing you again, and have yourself a fabulous day. Bye-bye.